Welcome back to Grow Glow Daily with Marisol. I'm Marisol Fumakoy, mental health and life coach. I'm also a mentor and trainer, and my mission is to empower and build up bold believers to step out of hiding and into their God-ordained gifts and passions and purpose in this life. And this segment of Grow Glow Daily is all about encouraging words. And today I just wanted to bring an encouraging word about creating your environment to thrive. So, as you noticed over the past couple of videos about your birthing season and also embracing grace, today I wanted to talk about creating your environment to thrive. Probably like a few days ago, I was invited on a podcast, and I was sharing my testimony and my story and just how I was able to get to this place in life. And one of the things that came up, one of the questions was, the woman asked me, why did I believe that God told me or chose me to stay in the environment that I didn't feel was nourishing or helping me to build myself up? And my answer to that was, I know she was saying that some people, they're supposed to leave their environment. And that's very true, because sometimes you'll get that. You have to leave this environment. You have to move on. I mean, Jesus left his environment because the people didn't accept him there. And it wasn't really something that was nurturing to who this person was to become. But for me, it was a little different. I felt like I was called to this environment. I was called to this place where I was looking around and felt like there was just dry ground. There was no way any seeds could be planted here or anything could grow, because it seemed like everything that started to grow, it just died, or there was just nothing to give it life. And I remember one day sitting in my bedroom and I was crying, and I was thinking, like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I ever going to get anywhere, like in life, and become somebody different in my family, and show the children coming up that, look, you can do anything that is possible. We don't have to do what's always been done. Like, God created us for such a time as this, that same thing. And it was that feeling of like, how can I create an environment for myself in a place where it just felt so barren, like there was nothing to pull from, like I had to be creative. And so that's why I was pressed to share this message about, you have the power to create your environment, because God called me to this place because he knew that I didn't have to go anywhere to make an excuse to say, well, this is why I couldn't produce in Connecticut. This is why I couldn't produce in this city or this state, because this and this and this, everything was external. There was nothing internal that was preventing anything from happening. But it's because of my belief, I would tend to look out and was like, well, the environment is not conducive to, who God is calling me to become. So therefore I can't become while I'm still here. And that was like, God was like, no, that's the very reason why you're here, because if you can get the external world out of your mind and stop making excuses for what I've called you to and how I'm going to prune you and to get you ready to be the person that I called you to become, you need to withstand this environment, and you need to be the one to create the environment that other people could have or use as a habitat, as a space. You have to create that for yourself. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, I was like, no, it's easier just to move someplace else for me. And I was like, okay, if I move somewhere else, I'm there too. I'm with myself. And maybe there might be something in that environment that I don't like, or I feel like, oh, it's not working for me. Oh, it's too sunny here. It's too hot. I can't really do what I need to do. So there goes the excuses again. So it really wasn't my environment per se, even though environment plays a large part of who we are and who we become. So I'm not saying that that's not true, because obviously we know that there's environments, even for my community of people, that is very difficult with schools that are not that great, neighborhoods that are not that great. So yes, environments do, play a huge role, number one role in how we tend to grow up and who we become as adults. But I'm saying for me personally, I felt like God was calling me to where I am and telling me that I could produce in any environment, in any season. And I didn't think I could, because I needed something to pull from externally, right? I was looking externally to pull from things. And God was telling me to look within, because what I was desiring and what I was hoping for was not going to come from the outside. And so creating my own environment, it took a lot of trust, faith, willingness not to give up, to not to just see with my eyes, physical eyes, but to see what was unseen, like what could not be seen in the flesh, but in the spiritual. And sometimes if you look in that way, you can see so much of the potential that God has for a certain place. But if you were just to look with your physical eyes, you will see that there's no hope for this place. There's no hope for these people either. But spiritually looking, you see a lot of hope. You see things blossoming. You see opportunities there, and there. But before, you couldn't see that. So maybe you're in that season, or you're in that place, in that environment where you're looking around and you're saying, well, I'm in this family. My parents, or I only have a mom, and she's working 3 jobs. She don't have time to stay with me. Or you are that mom and you're working 3 jobs and you have children that you need to take care of, and it's hard because their dad is not in their life. Or you're a single dad who has brothers and sisters and everyone is just out on their own, or they're out doing drugs and stuff, and you just feel like you are the only one that's not doing drugs, and you want to help them, but you don't see a way out. And I mean, there's so many different unique situations that you could be in, and just looking around and feeling like hope is gone. But the environment I'm talking about is the environment in your mind. And that's the environment that needs the most work, needs the most renewing, refining, and pay attention to it. And how you can feed your mind and how you can feed yourself things that can help change your mind, change your perspective, the way you see things. Because it's really all about perspective. Because 2 people could look at the same thing and see something totally different. So we can both grow up in really tough neighborhoods, and we could have one parent, or we're raised by grandma because our parents are, on drugs or out in the street, or, having a hard time, and grandma's raising us. And we could be in the same house. We can go to the same school. We could be the same age. We both will do something different with our lives, because it all depends on how you perceive what you're seeing, the environment that you're in. So it says here in Romans, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect will. And so again, it's that renewing of your mind. And when you renew your mind, it's like doing something different than what your environment is showing you. Now for me, I would see successful people all the time, online and movies, and especially on YouTube and other. I'm like, how do these people become successful? What is wrong with that word today? Successful. And successful could be many meanings to it, to different people. So just take it for what I'm trying to, in this context. Like they're making good money. They have a good life. Things seem easy because, again, it's external. We're just seeing what it looks like. But it's just this life that you don't know nothing about because you never lived that life. You never seen a house like that. You never driven in a car like that. You never seen money like that in your bank account. So that, to me, that was different, right? So seeing that, and you're like, how did that person do that? How did they get the discipline to be where they are right now? And so what I started doing, I was starting to read books, like self-help books. And I would read books like Think and Grow Rich, or, oh my God, there's like a whole list. I have like all these books on Audible, and I would get them from Amazon. Sometimes they were on YouTube, and I would just listen to the audiobooks. But these books helped me to see a different way, because I had no one in my environment that shared that same view or that thought or had that same kind of life, you know? Like my gram, she was close to that. So she was very inspirational, because she owned homes and she had a nice car, and she worked and she saved money, and she did things. So I was able to see that growing up. And it was just like trying to see past that level and seeing what more can a person do? Like, how did a person get to that? So reading books was the first thing that I was attracted to learn more. And as I was reading the books, I started to gain knowledge, and I started to gain understanding, and I started to gain new wisdom, to be like, okay, now I see. The more I read things, the more my mind was renewing. And then the Bible was a part of that. And I didn't read the Bible that much at all during that time. It was just like little scriptures here and there. But the self-help books, I was really heavy into them. And then I would start to watch different documentaries and YouTube videos, and just to get my mind to be open and see and explore what was possible. Because if I didn't see it around me, I had to try to figure it out through other people, like vicariously through other people's lives that already lived it and already did these things and overcame their obstacles, or came from certain environments that wasn't so nurturing, and was able to succeed and fight against all the odds. So I'm saying all this to say is that you can create that environment by just you becoming disciplined and renewing your mind and not being conformed to this world. Because if you stick with the world ways and the world patterns and want to do what the world does, you will start to kind of gear off the path that God has set for you. But there's also something great about the fact that there are books by people who've been in the world, who've done certain things in the world. So you understand the world and get that knowledge and understand how it works, and getting information that probably wasn't for you in the first place. But creating that environment starts off with knowledge, understanding. And second of all, it was taking care of myself. So I had to create an environment to take care of myself. I had to exercise. I had to eat well, because that all plays a part on how my brain functions. And eating certain foods, I had a lot of sensitivities to different foods. So eating certain foods would make my brain foggy. I couldn't think straight. I would feel nauseous. I was afraid. I would have anxiety out of nowhere. Like, where did this come from? But maybe it was that meal that you ate yesterday that wasn't really good for your body. And sometimes we don't put those two together, like food that we eat and how it impacts our mind and our all the chemicals in our body, and how that could cause depression and anxiety from eating certain foods and not drinking enough water and having enough nutrition. So that was the second thing. So first was reading books, getting knowledge, gaining understanding. Second was taking care of my body and making sure that I'm digesting and eating the proper nutrients for me to thrive. The other thing was relationships with people. And I had to learn a lot, because I grew up as a person who had more of like the orphan spirit. I was more of that person who had abandonment issues, right? So my relationships were different, because I will always see it as like, oh, I want the person to like me, but it's not like on the front of my mind. It's not in my conscious mind, that I'm thinking that. It's the subconscious mind that's running the show. So the subconscious mind is really saying like, I want you to like me because I don't like me. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel good enough. So that's the programming that's running in my subconscious mind, but my conscious mind is like acting like everything's all good. Like, oh, I'm really healthy in relationships. I know relationships. I feel really weird. I feel very, like sometimes people don't really care about me like they say they do. And a lot of times I was getting confused with friendships with people who say they're really my friend and then they act differently, like not like a friend. And I had to learn that because first, I was a highly sensitive person. Second of all, very green and just like thinking the best in everyone. And very forgiving person, especially when people did some of the most shadiest things. And I would just forgive them and say, it's okay. It's all right. Everybody makes mistakes, and easily forgive. And I saw that people admired that about me, but there was something that I didn't like about myself because I wanted to have better boundaries, to set those boundaries, say, no, like you don't deserve my friendship. You don't deserve me being in your life, period. But I didn't have that in me. And instead I would just shame myself and make myself feel bad for being that way. And it's like, why were you so vulnerable? Why did you allow this to happen, Marisol? It's your fault. They walked over you because you caused this. It's your fault, So that's the programming that was in my mind, that now I had to learn relationships, like how to deal with people. And this was all a part of my environment, from the knowledge of redoing my mind to what I put in my body, now to the people I'm in relationship with. And that's whether it's family, friends, or people that wanted to have relationships, like personal relationships, love interest, things like that. So it was very important for me to start learning how to set boundaries and respecting myself, loving myself, and knowing how to communicate when something didn't feel right to me. And granted, not everybody's going to be ready to receive what you have to say. Even if you have grown in that space and you want to have those conversations, you have to be aware that other people may not want to, and they have not grown in that area to be able to sit down and have an emotionally intelligent conversation with you, because they're not aware of their own self and they're not aware of how they can self-manage. And so if you got to that place and that other person didn't get to that place, you just have to utilize your skills and the things that you learned and have patience with others and not let that provoke you to go backwards, and think less of yourself and want to, be confrontational in a bad way or any of that with the relationships that you have around you. So it's really being mindful when you're creating your environment. You want to create relationships with people that it feels good to be around them, because it's like you're pouring into them, they're pouring into you. It's like this relationship where we're both getting fed and nourished in our relationship. It's not like a one-sided relationship where someone's just taking from you and pulling from you and just treating you like trash. But you have to be more aware of yourself, because nobody could ever do that to you if you knew who you were, if you understood who you were and you had emotional intelligence for yourself. So you can't use that excuse like, oh, they took advantage of me. You have to now be accountable for yourself and not make excuses what people did to you, but what you have to learn how to do for yourself. Right? So I had to learn that. And it was easy for me to be in that place of abandonment issues and say, everybody hates me, or nobody really likes me, and boo-hoo me, like, something is happening to me. But realizing that it's all about stepping up and being responsible for yourself in any of those situations, because any of those situations you could have set boundaries. You could have said no. You could have walked away. You could have never engaged in the first place, because you would have known the signs of an abusive person, or someone who was narcissistic or anything that could have been on the opposite side of what you were expecting. It's just learning those skills to identify certain things and behaviors in people so that you don't put yourself in situations that are not conducive for you. So that's another way to create your environment, is to develop great relationships with people. Whether it's friendships or mentors or people that you just trust that you could talk to. But those are like the 3 major things that really help renew and help this environment here, is to really get knowledge and understanding. So the wisdom. The second is the health and wellness, taking care of your mind, nurturing, nourishing. And third is the relationships, your relationship with God, your relationship with others. Those 3 are like the top 3 for me that I've found to be most helpful in creating that environment for you to thrive, to really do well. And everything else, there's other things too that can help you create an environment that's really supportive to where you're going. But the real thing is just that internal environment. You really have to get control and put things in your mind that's going to help you to see in a certain way, to perceive things in a way that's going to help you get to the next phase of your life. And I hope that was helpful, because I feel like I probably went around in circles, but take what you need. Well, I'll see you all in the next video, and thank you. And make sure to subscribe and share this with anybody you think that it will be beneficial for. And don't forget to click the link in the description to add your email to be added to my VIP list. Working on a podcast and website right as we speak, and other things and other tools and things and resources that'll be helpful. So make sure to stay tuned and subscribe. I really appreciate you for being here. Thank you, and have a blessed day.